those of us from this part of the world in terms of time zone now, not just in terms of location. And if you are not, maybe good morning or good late night, whatever it is at your end. And as you can see from the screen, we have a special guest also again today. We have Oscar Valero, and he's going to be taking us through web contents and APIs, a cheat sheet walkthrough. It's a topic that those of us who joined in before now have been trying to express how this is something we don't know too much about, and we are looking to learn a lot more from his session today. So, Temida, can you move to the next slide? Okay. So while my colleague is trying to move to the next slide, I can read it from my own side. He's got a bad network where he is, but unfortunately, he's the one who should be doing the moderation. So the thing on the next slide actually is I hope everyone can hear me, right? Oscar, can you see me?
Yes. Okay. Yes, I can hear you and I can see.
Something wrong from my side. The slow connection is showing from his side then. So the next thing on the slide is who we are and who the sponsors are. So as you can see, it's at the two extreme ends of the current slide showing. There's Enterprise DNA and there's UrBizEdge. So Enterprise DNA is one of the official sponsors. They make available to us, the community members, special packages, and especially every week, every session, there's someone who gets to win their subscription worth over $1,000. And also the results for BizEdge, we are a training company, and so we are the ones who've been powering this since last year. So the next slide after that is supposed to be, what sessions trainings you can take advantage of that are available this month, next month. But then after that is the main slide that's supposed to be on our presenter, who Oscar is. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a quick reading from my own screen about his bio so that I don't waste too much time trying to wait for the network at Timidayo's to help us out. So, okay. Who is Oscar? Oscar is an exceptional startup advisor. He has been advising, Baud for a few years now, providing them with his financial experience, business intelligence insight, and also the entrepreneurial. Okay, I see he's moving his slides right now, but I'll keep on with what I'm doing. So, you'll find Oscar as a very experienced person who is going to bring to bear those experience in his session, because he's going to be sharing a lot with us. Some of the things he's seen in the real world, and he's someone who you can connect with on LinkedIn. We're going to share his LinkedIn link. So I'm going to also maybe copy and paste his profile so that you can be able to see some of what I'm trying to say about him. I'm reading off of the screen that you can't see right now, but right now I'm going to hand over to Oscar so that he can begin his session. At the end, we're going to, maybe I should ask, do you want us to have questions coming in between your session, or we should just let them pile up to the end?
It's fine either way. I think that we're going to do a couple exercises. So at the end of every exercise, we can just stop to see if anyone has any question.
Okay, great. All right. So that means what will happen is, as you have your questions, keep dropping them in the chat box. And then at different intervals, when Oscar, has given us some time to do some things, and then we will handle your questions. So I'll be monitoring. I'm going to turn off my video and mic, but I'll be monitoring. So Oscar, over to you. It's a pleasure to have you amongst us today.
No, thank you. Thank you for the invitation. And let me start sharing my screen. This should be my main screen. Okay, do you see my PowerPoint presentation?
Yes, it is. It's clear. But
okay, just let me. Okay, so Yes, as I was mentioning, Michael and the rest of the team, thank you very much for having me here. Today we are going to talk about web.contents, my cheat sheet, right? So one of the things before starting, I just want to make a little bit of publicity. If you want to join a Discord community, I know that some of the team are already over there. So if you want, just join us. We are a Power Platform community, right? The next thing that I am going to tell you about is that this talk is based on a Medium blog post that I have been writing. I would say I wrote, but in reality is that I am constantly modifying this Medium blog. At any time you want to get to the Medium, on the bottom right of the screen, you will see a QR code, and this will guide you to a page where you can see and find all of my links. One of the links is to this blog post that I maintain, and it's exclusively about web.contents. So pretty much web.contents, it's a function within Power Query, which help us to retrieve data from a website, from an API, right? And this is something which I would like to go through with you. Now, let me tell you that this session, I always talk about tacos, and I always start talking a little bit to level everyone trying to level everyone to the subject, right? So when we talk about APIs, we often, one metaphor which is often used is the one of a restaurant. Me being Mexican, and obviously the food being tacos, the very one that is close to my heart is that I do it with tacos, but it really doesn't matter. You can use any kind of food to a restaurant to do about this, right? So let's go and talk about what you go and see wherever you go to a taco place. But remember, this could be like a restaurant. Now, remember that in here, what I am trying to explain is what it's an API. So usually when you go to a restaurant, you have something as the name of the restaurant, right? The name of the restaurant, and my favorite taco man in Mexico, his name is Gallo. So we will say a base URL, which is the name of the restaurant, right? So in this case, every API starts with what it's the base URL. This is the web address that you are going to make the request to the API. In this case, I just invented this one, and it should look something like this, right? Usually they start with API dot and then the URL and the domain, but it really changes. Now, one of the things which is very important when you go to a restaurant is take a look at the menu. In this case, when we are working with APIs, something which is very important is to read the documentation. And I will say this many times through this session, you have to read the documentation in order to work with APIs. The reason is that, as the same when we are dealing with restaurants and with food, every restaurant, even if it serves the same kind of food, everyone is different, right? So you need to go and take a look at the menu. You go and need to take the documentation. So what happens when you go and take a look at the menu and the documentation? You realize that you have different type of foods. In this case, when you go to a Mexican restaurant, you have tacos, but you also have tortas, alambres, another kind of specialties and this kind of thing, right? So these big groups are usually called endpoints of the same API. So making it once more to the place, to the restaurant. In this case, what I like and I love about Mexican food is tacos. So the endpoint that I am interested in is the endpoint which is tacos. Now, we are in this case, we are putting together the URL that we are going to make the request to. So we have the base URL, and then we have the endpoints. But the next is that we need a query. Within the query, we are going to make the request to the API about the specificity of this endpoint. In this case, my query will say the taco, the type of taco that I want to try, and this is a taco of pastor. The amount is 5 with onion, coriander, and very spicy. I am specifying this within my query. And if I translate this to how this should be in Power Query, it would look something like the one like the image on the very right. Okay, we will have a base URL. then we will have an endpoint. The endpoint will be defined in relative path. Now, I will mention this a couple times, which is very important that when we talk and when you are working with APIs, you use relative path. The thing in here is that if you don't use, or if we don't use the relative path, we will start finding errors when we try to refresh our Power BI report from the Power BI service, like automatic refresh, scheduled refresh, will start failing if we don't use relative path. The next thing that we will include is our query. And in here, in our query, remember that we are making URL requests. Really, when you visit a web page, you also make a URL request. And take a look when you go to Google or any web page. Usually, after you will see a question mark. After the question mark, this is where the query parameters are specified. And in this case, in Power Query, we define the different queries with commas. But when you go to a URL to a web page, the different parameters within the query are divided by the ampersand sign, okay? We are going to work with different APIs, and the idea is a bit that we go and try different APIs. So in here, I would like you to, if you can, grab your cell phones at this moment, and if you could just go and follow this QR code that it's on the screen. Sorry, that it's on the screen, and I will start the poll. So we can, or you can choose which is the API that you want to take a look. Let me go quickly through them. The first of them would be Alpha Vantage. It's about financial data. The second one is SwitchBot, which actually I will show you how to post information and how to make a physical button work within Power BI. So pretty much it will make a switch, which is behind me, to turn on and off a light. Open Weather, which is for getting the weather. World Bank data is this is a very interesting source of information, World Bank data. Jira, which you might know, and also News API. So let me open the votes, and why don't you visit, please, this QR code, and let's just start voting, and that's the way how we will find which API we are going to visit, okay? We are going to review first. So remember, yep.
Which ones do you say is going to turn on a light behind you? I'm really wanted to hear which one you said that would be.
That would be SwitchBot.
Okay, cool. That's what I'm voting for. Okay, thanks.
That's the first option in the. Okay.
So guys, I hope we are voting. I've already done my voting. Just scan the QR code. Let me see if I can grab the direct link in case you're having problems scanning. Let's see if I can do that.
I am very, very sorry. I got disconnected. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, how do you do?
Okay, sorry. I'm not really sure what happened. So let's go back to the presentation, and we don't have enough votes to make a change. But in here, Michael was saying that he wanted to try the one for the switch.
I'm trying to do right now. I'm thinking maybe some people are having problem with the QR code. So I've grabbed the link. I want to share the link via the chat so that they can also be able to click on the link in case maybe they are not able to access the QR code.
Okay. Yeah, I just paste the link on the chat. the link where people can vote. Okay.
Great. Thanks a lot.
Okay. So Jira is winning. Let me show you. Okay, so let's go this time with Jira. Still, we do have time to. We will also have time to review the other ones. Okay, so let's go with Jira. The way how I talk and I go through these sessions is that I will do this on my Power Query. Okay, so if there is any question, please interrupt me. At this moment, I am not looking at my Teams chat. So if you have a question or anything, just please don't hesitate just to let me know. Okay. So we're going to Jira. Let me open home, transform data. I do have here on the other screen a cheat code, okay? So one of the first things that I told you about is that it is very important that we go and take a look at the documentation. I have the documentation of Jira here saved as a bookmark. And in this case, what we are going to see is two things about Jira. One of them is that it offers basic authentication. Jira offers a basic authentication. You could also do OAuth 2.0 for authenticating with Jira, but for using OAuth, this is more complex to use OAuth because of the because it requires to whenever you start using Jira, this requires a custom connector, okay? So this requires that you build a custom connector using Visual Studio. So in this case, what we are going to do is we are going to do the basic authentication, and as I show you in here in the screen, what it says is that we should supply basic authentication headers when we are doing this authentication. Now, one of the things which is the basic authentication is that the basic authentication is using base 64 string. And let's go a little bit through this. So one of the things that I do when I start writing APIs is that I simply go to my I really do this every time that I start working with APIs. I go to my to the story that I told you that I write, and what I do usually is that I copy the code, and then I go to Power Query. Within Power BI, I open it, I choose a blank query, go to the advanced editor, and then I will just replace everything that I just copy from the story. Now, for working with Jira, we will need a couple things within the sorry, I am trying to find my query editor. Okay, yeah. Now, one of the things that we are going to need is we are going to need a header, because the documentation said that the header needs to be passed as a binary. In order to pass a header as a binary, and in here, once more, the authentication, what it says is that we will need the username and the password. In this case, the password is not really the password, but is the API key that we retrieve from our admin Jira. When we go to Jira, we will go to settings and we can create an API key. Now, in here, we will need to put this within text to binary and then binary to text, and this will transform the concatenation of username, 2 points, colon, and the password. This will translate this to a base64. So in this case, what I will do in here is that I will put my username for Jira. Then this is with double quotes. And then I will have to paste in here my Jira, my key, the API key that I created in Jira. Now, the other thing that we will need is the base URL. It is defining the documentation that the base URL, we should put in here the first part of our company or our tenant URL, and it's pretty much the same URL that you use to get into Jira. And then we are going with the version 3 of the API. Okay. In this case, we are not going to use any of this logic, so we can delete it. And we are going to use in here web contents. Again, the base URL. The base URL is coming from here. Now, the relative part that we are going to use in this case is search, because this relative part will show us all the results for all the Jira tickets that we have open. And in here, we are not going to use a query, but we are going to use the headers. Remember that when we look at the documentation, we saw that the headers, and we can go back to the documentation, and we see that the document in the documentation, we should supply the header in base64. Okay. So pretty much when we supply this in base64, we should include basic, and then we should include this text. This text is base64 for the concatenation of the username and the password. So in here, what the Jira documentation said is you should put the word basic, and the next thing is the concatenation of the username plus password in base64. That's what this means in the documentation. So we can delete this part for the because we are not going to need it. And in here we have our authorization header with basic, and then we have the header, which pretty much the header is coming from the header that we have in here. This is where we are putting the header. Okay. Now, the content type will be application JSON, and then we can delete this part of the content. We have created our first web.contents request. We press done. And in this case, what we have is that we have our response, our JSON response that contains our issues. Okay. If I then click here, and then I can just convert it to table. This specific tenant, which is a test tenant that I have, only has 8 records, but still you will be able to then expand on the records and see the items. Now, there is one thing which is very important that I mentioned, and is that Jira uses pagination. In this case, we are only looking at base64 authentication for connecting to Jira, and not the specific pagination. Okay, so I will stop here because this one would stop our first exercise, and I will ask if there is any question at this moment.
Any questions, anyone?
If there is no question, we can continue with the exercise, okay? And it's fine. Now, as we did before, I will ask you to go to this QR code or to the link that it was pasted before, and from there we can just give me 1 minute because we have done Jira. And let me save, reset. and start. Now, if you could please go back to the QR code and vote, which is the one that you want to see. Sorry, I don't know why I forgot to mention. We have one. I usually do a very simple example which is called Chuck Norris, but at the moment this API is not available. Today, I don't know, it had an error, so we cannot do the Chuck Norris, right? But we have done the Jira. And if you would be so kind to start voting, and then we can watch, we can go through the next example.
I don't know, but your screen is not showing. I don't know if there's a reason or you don't. Your screen is currently not showing.
Sorry, I shared. Yeah. Okay. Now we have the QR code. And sorry, and I mentioned when I was not sharing that this Chuck Norris API, unfortunately, today is not available. The system is down. And we have already done Jira, and we have in here SwitchBot. We can, this is for showing how we can post information. Alpha Vantage is financial information, Open Weather, the World Bank, and the News API. Okay. Okay, we have a tie. Probably we would need one more vote to see if we can untie between SwitchBot and the World Bank data. If not, okay, yeah, we have, okay, the World Bank. I think that's clear. Sorry, Michael, you've been out of luck. Okay, so I will stop the poll. And let's go back to now the World Bank data. I will go back to my Power BI. I will go back, sorry, to my Power Query. And I will do once more what I show you about this one. Sorry, for the World Bank data. Now, the World Bank data is an API which unfortunately is very, very good, the World Bank data, but unfortunately I would say that the API is not very well documented. It's not very well written, the documentation for the API, right? For the World Bank. So one of the things that I doing here first for the World Bank, and let's go through parts, okay? I will always go to this part of the World Bank, which is called the data bank. In the data bank, in here, I will find out which is the information that I want to find. Usually, it's the world development indicators, the ones that we are interested. But it's a really wonderful database, and even more if you are interested, like in social and development subjects. This is a very, very interesting. So let's go to world development indicators. In this case, it really doesn't matter. We can choose all countries, or we can just choose one of them. Then we will go to series, and in series is the one which is very interesting, because in here we have like endless series that we can find, right, for that are related to the world development indicators. We have poverty, we have women access to education, gross domestic product. We have like a world of data in here. In this case, let's just choose one which is very okay, gross domestic product in constant US dollars for 2015. Okay, gross domestic product actual, okay? And in here, what I would do is just like choose whatever the last 5 years. This one it really doesn't matter. and then we will apply the changes. And then I will go to metadata. And this one is loading. And then I will go to series. And the thing in here is that what we are trying to look at all this is that we are going to search for this code. This code is the one of the indicator that we are interested on, and this is why we should go through all this to find this code. But that's the easiest way that I found to get to the code. Okay. Now the next thing that we are going to do in here is that once more we are going to my Medium blog. I will come here, I will copy, and then I will go back to my Power Query. I will create a new source. I will create a blank query, advanced editor. I will replace everything with this one, okay? So in this case, the documentation, when we go to the documentation, the World Bank documentation, we know that we have a basic, we do have in here, sorry. We have in here what is our base URL, okay? So this would be our base URL for the World Bank. The next thing that we are going to do for the World Bank, let me go back and I will go to my advanced editor, and in here I will write what is my, sorry. I will go here and I will paste my base URL. The next thing that we are going to do is that in this case, we don't need parameters. We don't need headers. We don't need this logic. We don't need the content. Now, our relative path in this case will be everything that is after our base URL. In this case, what we want is to search for this specific indicator that we saw in the previous page, right? Sorry, that it was this one. Okay. Let me just try to. So we have our relative path. The documentation indicates that we want all countries for this indicator, and the indicator that we are going to put, I will just copy what I have in here on my other screen, because I cannot copy and paste the indicator right now. So the indicator, remember that it was the GDP growth, and in here we are going to ny.gdp dot mktp dot kd dot set g. This is the code of the indicator that we want. This one, we don't need the queries in here because, oh, sorry, we will need queries in this one. This was a mistake from my side. But what we are not going to need is we are not going to specify the headers. Now, one of the things that we will do in here is that we will start writing our URL request. And our URL request, according to the World Bank data, we need to include a date. And in this case, our date will include years from 2000, 2020. Let's try to 2015, a smaller time frame. The next thing that we need to specify according to the World Bank data documentation is in which format we want the information. And in this case, the format that we want is JSON. And the last one, we want to know how much information we want per page. Remember that when we go and talk about and we work with APIs, we usually it's not always, but it's quite common that we need to specify either which pages and how many results per pages we want. And in this case, we are going to write just a fairly big number, so to make sure that we have all the information that we need. Okay. So once more, we are in this case requesting our base URL, then our relative path for all countries for this indicator. We are specifying the time frame, the format that we want to receive the information, and how many per page. Okay, and then we are going to done. In here we have our record. The first part of this JSON record that we are receiving, we know that we are having 1 pages with a total of 1,596 records. And I think that would be the important, right? So then we can go and then we can click on list. This list, we will convert it to table. And then from here, we will just start expanding, right? We have our country 3 ISO code. We have the country, we have the date, and we have the value. Obviously, the value is related to the indicator that we are requesting on this first step, which in this case was the GDP. So just to make and remember what we did, first we went to the data bank of the World Bank, and it was just to find which is the code of the indicator that we were interested to get. And the next thing that we did is just gather everything within our HTTP request. Our query, we included which is the time frame that we want, and we want the JSON format and 10,000. Now, you will say, and what about if we want a different format for JSON, and instead of JSON, can we do that? Yes, the answer is that yes, we can. World Bank data, yes, we can make different requests. And here I just will duplicate my query. I will go back to my Power Query. We have the same base URL. And in this case, I will just delete these steps. Sorry. Let me go once more. By mistake, I deleted all the queries. So we have our base query in here, and in here I can request this one also in XML format, right? This is not going to work, and I will show you why this one is not going to work, because actually we are using a JSON.document formula to parse the values of our web contents. So in this case, as we are requesting in XML, this should not be JSON document, but this should be an XML document. And then we click on OK. And there we have our information in XML. Now, how did I know that you could make requests in JSON and XML? Once more is the documentation. Remember that we have this restaurant. So in order to know what's available in this restaurant, we need to go and check our menu, in this case, our documentation. So in this case, we have the data, and in this case, we have it on XML format. So it was just as easy as just changing the XML, now JSON. I am more used to working with JSON, but there might be person who like more the XML format, right? JSON. And there you go. Okay. Now, one of the things which I would like to show you at this moment, I think that it's good, is that you will ask, hey, how would this be seen if I put this into a browser, right? So remember that all this is something that we have as a it's basically a web page that we are making the request, right? So it's API World Bank version 2. The next thing that we are going to do is to put our relative path. The next thing is our queries, but remember that our queries need to be start after the question mark, and then we have date as our query. And then we will use the ampersand sign. The format is JSON. And there you have the information, right? That the format is JSON. And there you have. We have the information on JSON. So pretty much what we are doing, and this was just to show you that the query that we build within Power Query would be the same as if we build it within our browser. Now, in our browser, we cannot modify headers and we cannot pass content, and certain APIs require headers and content, right? But in here, you might have a way of looking of how or understanding that at the end, when we visit a web page and when we use web contents within our Power BI, is we are just only making a request to an HTTP service. Now, at this point, I am going to stop and ask if there is any question.
Okay. Hello, Oscar.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So one question was, so when editing the code, when do you know what you need and what you don't need?
When I look at the codes, when I look at the codes in the World Bank.
No, just generally, because it seems different according to the APIs. Like it's not the same. It's not the same variables. It's not like a constant variable. Like when you're writing a formula, so it changes depending on the APIs. So so how do you know what you need or what you don't need?
It's always with the documentation. This is something that I stress out enough, that for dealing with APIs, you need to read the documentation. Actually, I was speaking with Julius from DNA once we were exchanging a couple some comments on a post that I did, and you find that many errors when dealing with APIs come from not reading the documentation. So I cannot do this. Yeah, you did probably. I will not say others. I have found many times that I cannot do this. And it's because I didn't read carefully enough the documentation. So when it comes with APIs, there is not such a thing as a secret formula. It's always about reading the documentation and trying to find out. Now, hopefully, when it comes to this, and you will go to hopefully you will start using this cheat sheet code, and you will say, oh, my documentation is telling me that I need to pass a parameter. Okay, how do I pass a parameter? So I have in here my parameters, right? And then I will say, or your documentation will let you know you need to pass this content as a parameter. So you have in here the content, and then you need to pass the content as a parameter in binary, right? So it's like gathering these pieces either from my cheat sheet and then from the documentation to make a successful API request. I don't know if I answered the question.
No, Messi, does that answer the question? I think so. That's why the question was a bit clear. The question is this day logic, delayed J logic. When do you use it, or what exactly does it do? Because I noticed you moved it in on
Yes, we
API.
can.
What's
We,
for
we,
then?
we can go. We can go through this one. I usually go this as examples, but we can definitely do this one. Okay. So imagine that I use this days logic for Jira. When you make a request to Jira in order to bring your open issues, you need Jira has a language that is called GAQL. That is a little bit like SQL, but it's called Jira querying language, right? And you can tell Jira how many days you want to bring on of information. But once more in here, this one is stated in the documentation, and it says like if you want to bring days for the last 20 days, you have to include this one. You have to include this information, and this information needs to be included within your query. And this is why I use it. And I create this one because then I create a parameter, and if it is empty, then it brings everything. So if Jira Days is empty, then brings everything. But if someone puts something within the parameter Jira Days, then it creates this string, which is then added to the query. So this is where I use Days logic. Now, for example, when it comes to content, sometimes you want to pass content to your API because it tells you, the API will tell you, you have to specify which this content it is. In the case, for example, for turning on and off the switch that I have behind me, you need to pass a content to tell on and off, right? Because that's the documentation, and the documentation says if you want to manage this switch via an API, you need to pass a content, and the content can be on and off. Now, with the content, you can do other things, but this one changes the method of your request, and actually, instead of getting information, you are posting information because you are sending information. Okay. So that's when this one is used. And then really it's about then forming your web.contents, your code for making the API request, and reading the documentation. Unfortunately, there is not something as an answer fits all, as a suit fits everything, right? And I also seen that, for example, when it comes to this, it's a lot of finding out, and how you find out and know more about certain subject. Well, it's trying, and in here it's a little bit more about examples and try how to do things to understand how to make these requests. Because you will, if you face APIs, you will need to solve issues when you start making requests to different APIs.
That's also understand. Thank you for that. So you mentioned data world doesn't really have a good documentation, right? Data world, you mentioned it doesn't have a good documentation.
Mm-hmm.
So what documentation? Which company we use it as like the best documentation, like to you, or which documentation do you like personally?
Oh, I don't know. That's yeah, that's that's a hard question. It really, there are like so many APIs in there, and the documentation is so different. And for example, the world development indicators. It's a huge database. The documentation is not very well. Jira is a company which is also a big company, and the documentation is quite well documented. I cannot say. There are like so many, and that's a hard question, But the documentation, it really changes from API to API, and then people will need to find out their own way through when they making their requests, right? But my recommendation would be not to get discouraged by if it seems complex at the beginning. Then you will start finding your way with the documentation and with the APIs, and then you can get like really nice information and really valuable information from APIs, with the advantage of not having to download an Excel and then create it, but just like direct connectivity to the site, right? I have created connectors to LinkedIn, to Twitter, to Clockify, to I don't know, like so many web services, and it's super valuable information on all this, right? Jira, I don't know, it's just like a world of information, and then just having this facility of direct connectivity from Power BI to the data source through the web.contents is just wonderful. But for getting this wonderful world, you need to know the keys, and you have the keys, right?
So thank you for that, for this wonderful presentation. So thank you for this presentation.
Okay. So let me if it's fine, let me just go through one last one that okay. I know that Michael wanted to check the last one, which is and I will just do a copy and paste from the code that I have, and I will not do it all. And this is the one for turning on and off the switch. Okay. So
your screen is not showing.
Yeah, give me one moment.
Okay.
Do you see my screen?
Yes, I see your screen. Okay.
Okay, so this is the one that it's used for turning on and off the switch that is behind me. Let me turn on my video, and you will see. Okay, sorry, my video was on. There is up there. There is a sign, right? Do you see this light sign? So in here, do you see my video?
Yes, your video. Yes.
In here, I am pointing. This is a sign. I will turn on the light of this one. Now, if you see my screen, in here, it requires content. Once more, how do I know that it requires content? It's in the documentation. The documentation for managing this specific switch through an API tells you it requires a documentation. It requires that you pass the content, and the content need to be passed as binary, right? And in here, I will just change this one, turn off, for turn on. I will. Did you see the light that just turned on behind me? Let's.
No, it wasn't so clear.
Okay, let me turn it off from my screen. But I just pay attention to this square that is here, right? I will turn it off.
Okay. Yes. I think I saw it.
Yeah, I can do it again. Turn on. And this is actually posting information, and this is actually passing information to an API, right? And in this case, something that you can do, for example, is that every time that there is a refresh on your Power BI report, you could actually be calling a Power Automate and triggering something in Power Automate when there happens a refresh, like a notification on your cell phone, because you are posting information as content, if it makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, so I know that we are close to the hour. I would like to thank you all. I know that this session is very technical. It's a very technical session, right? I will hopefully you get to know a little bit the sense of what you can do with APIs, and also I will just let me once more share my link that it's over here. So if you want to go and find me, ask me anything, you can find me on LinkedIn, on the community, on the PAUPCO community. That I know that if Angie and yeah, a couple people are over there. Just go and drop a question, and if you have anything, right? Also, I would like you to visit finally this time tracking application, which its name is Clockify. It's a free time tracking application, and the custom connector for this one, I built it. And if you go to Clockify and you go to integrations Power BI, you will get to the custom connector that I built for this application, which its name is Clockify. Okay.
I can get access to the Clockify.
Sorry?
I can get access to the Clockify. Like
You use
Clockify.
You use it?
Should we just go to how do we use it? How do we? Is there a link?
Okay, so
just
yes, clockify.me. But just let me yeah, give me 1 minute and I will share it in here, okay?
Okay. All right. So thank you for this session, and it's time for us to ask those 2 questions. So we'd like to know a bit about how do you get started? How you got started into maybe using Power BIs or these data analytic tools, even Power Platform. I know you're very big on Power Platform. So how did you get started?
I got started. This was probably the first time that I tried Power BI. It was when it was an add-in in Excel. And then I don't know if you remember that Power BI actually started as an Excel. Power BI started as an Excel add-in. That's the true story and the very old story. I was one of the first persons that I think that I tried it, but then I tried like more seriously probably 5-6 years ago when I was in the need of reporting for the corporation that I was working on. And that's when I got like very involved in Power BI. We required financial reporting. I was at the moment the treasury manager of this corporation, and we require banking data. So that's how I started. It was like, yeah, that's when I started getting like very involved in business intelligence.
Oh, okay. Then what about those that want to get started? What advice we give to those starting, or how do you think they can get started on this?
My advice for people who wants to get started is go to Microsoft Learn. Go use Microsoft Learn. Microsoft Learn is a wonderful. Let me. You know like, Microsoft.
Yeah, I know Microsoft Learn. It's like you like documentations.
No. But Microsoft, my Microsoft Learn has videos and everything, right? And you can get Microsoft Learn. You can find your path within learning, and I think that it's a great. And then also the community, to get involved in the community and the events. There is so much free learning for Power Platform. I would say that there is no excuse for someone who there is so much learning opportunities, and there are so many free events around, and there is so much like this one. The community is awesome. I would say like don't get discouraged and just try to make a schedule within your agenda. Like every Wednesday and Friday, I will learn 1 hour of Power Apps or Power BI or whatever, right? Power Automate.
I also posted the link. You guys should join. He also has a lot of resources on the Discord channel. This is kind of as very helpful. The Power your Discord channel.
Oh so, yeah, if you want to join also our Discord, we are over 1,000 people in the community in the Discord.
Okay, so it's time for the questions. So, like everybody knows, the Power BI Learning Community Lagos is being sponsored by Enterprise DNA, and in every session they give out a free membership. So, Oscar is going to ask a question, and you just have to type in your answer on the chat box. Then, also again, so Oscar, when you see the right answer, you just have to just set a thumbs up emoji. those thumbs up emoji, the person's whoever replies, the first reply. Yeah, since it's just one person, the first reply.
Okay.
Okay.
So I will just put the thumbs up
emoji
in the right answer, right?
Yes, in the right answer. Yes.
Okay. Yes. So for this, I would ask, and I say, like I mention it like a lot of times. One is what I consider the most important thing that you need to pay attention to when working with APIs in Power BI or in Power Query.
This one says it. This is a because you said it so many times.
I say
this is very easy. I think great have a winner.
Yeah, we have a winner.
All right,
Prince.
Look, yeah, Prince. Because I know you said it so many times. Even the Microsoft Learn have made a joke about it. All right, so Oscar,
Prince.
Thank you for this wonderful session. I hope to see you again, so you will learn more about these APIs. We will go a bit further about it.
Yeah, no, I appreciate a lot the invitation and the opportunity for being here on this Sunday evening. And if you have any questions about it, just let me know. Just drop me a message on the Discord. I'm often there. Okay.
So Prince, you can send your name. Just send your name to this email address, webinar@UrBizEdge.com, so that I can send in your details to Enterprise DNA.
Okay.
Right now. All right. So thank you so much for this wonderful session.
No, thank you for the invitation, and we keep in touch. Okay. And great. Thanks a lot for doing this for the community. It's awesome.
Yeah. Okay, so next week we have another session the same time, and let me try to put it up. Yes, and next week our presenter is David Abu. I'm trying to share my screen. Okay. And it's going to tell us about how he got into Microsoft and how he's currently a global advocate for Microsoft Word. All right, now, so everybody, thank you for this session, and we'll see you next time.
I know David, and he's awesome. Okay.
Oh, you
great.
know David.
Yeah.
So by next week is by the same time, the same 6 p.m. is going to be on the show.
Yeah. I will try to be here.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Okay. Have a nice evening, guys. Bye.
Bye.